Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm chatting with Fenella Hemus, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us exactly what you do, Fenella.
Hi, and lovely to be here. Thank you, Sandra, for having me. My name's Fenella Hemus, and the business I run is Fenella Hemus NLP Training and Coaching. So my name is everywhere. And I train people in NLP, either leaders, coaches, educators, anybody who wants to support other people to be the best they can be, as well as have themselves be the best that they can be. And I also do breakthrough coaching, so have people accelerate their success essentially and overcome hurdles or blocks which they might have had for the whole of their life, and they really still can't put their finger on exactly what it is. So I kind of go in there with a laser and pull out from the root, and people change.
Great. And we came across each other many years ago, but more recently we had a game of crazy golf in a really random place. And I know you're a big believer in fun and play, and we're going to come on to that a little bit later. But I'd like to take you back. What was your sort of journey and how did you get to where you are now?
So I have had a very meandering journey. I never did a career ladder. I kind of did a career river, I suppose, one of those meandering rivers through the countryside. I trained as an artist. I've always been very political, socially political. And I trained in sculpture. So I'm very hands-on. I'm practical. I like to get down and do things. From there, what do you do with an art degree? Go work with children. Because what else can you do with fine art? So I went and started working with children in an after-school club, amongst other short part-time jobs. And I realized then how much I actually loved working with children in a playful environment. There started my journey into human development, because I got really into child development. And after a period of traveling and adventure for a couple of years, I came back and went almost straight back into working with children. It was still there, that love. And I eventually ended up running an adventure playground. I then I did a project to support playwork training in this area, and became a trainer through that, and was kind of at the forefront of playwork training and also inclusive play. Enabling disabled children to access mainstream play was a very big thing for me. It was really important that all children could be together. And so I did that for a number of years. I had something major happen in my life. Maybe we'll talk about that afterwards, but yeah, something happened. So I left working with children because I was working in quite difficult circumstances in the playground. Went traveling for another couple of years, and I came back and I still was passionate about play. So I was still teaching play work, but I was also very passionate about fitness, and I became a personal trainer, and I've trained as a nutrition coach as well. So as you can see, I'm like everything about the human form I'm fascinated with. And then I was working as a personal trainer and thinking, why is it that my clients would have great success when they were with me, but what was that thing that was stopping them from achieving the things that they wanted to achieve? Because I'm only 1 or 2 hours a week. They have all those other hours to go off and do exactly what they were doing before. And then NLP kind of fell into my lap. I'd heard about it before, and I went and trained. And I have to say, I sat in the car. It was a transformational experience for me personally, but I sat in the car and I thought, on the way home, I thought, the world does not look the same again. Every piece of the jigsaw of like working with children, of working in equality, diversity and inclusion, which I'd also done, in working in personal training, fitness, and it all fell into place. And this was the missing piece of the jigsaw. So of course I went to master prac, and then as a trainer, because I've been a trainer for many years, I thought, might as well go and train in it. And that has kind of brought me to when I was 51, deciding that I would actually start a business. Because one of the things is when you become a trainer of NLP is you kind of can be a little bit unemployable because you don't put up with lots of things and it's not quite enough anymore. And so, yes, I started my business at the age of 51.
Good for you. Good for you. And that's actually, there is a growing trend for women starting businesses at 50 plus. No longer are we winding down, we're winding up. And I've certainly got no intention of retiring. And this is where the fun begins, really.
It really is. And that's I think it's an absolute joy, you know, finding the third age and recognizing, you know, I mean, I've never had children, I chose not to have them. But for all of those women who have given their lives to looking after other people to then really blossom with all the wisdom that they have. And I like to support women to recognize all of that they have inside them as well. You know, I believe every single person is magnificent. They've got magnificent, incredible potential.
Yeah, I think that the tendency historically was that women either retired at 50 or 55 or, you know, definitely by 60 because we had the younger retirement age. For some bizarre reason, why women were 60 and men were 65, God only knows.
When they die younger.
Yeah, and it was just really a bizarre concept to me. And then, you know, I'm getting letters through the post talking about my retirement. I'm thinking, I'm just firing up right now. I'm not getting anywhere near in my head a retirement and something I don't want to do. I think once you call yourself retired, you sort of stop. As a young child, I remember looking at women in their 50s and 60s and they were old.
Yeah.
But that's not the case today.
It really isn't the case today. It's so inspiring that, you know, there are some and women, I just think that the future is because women have coming in from a different way of looking at things, is that they have a different way of doing things given the opportunity to be really collaborative. I'm not saying everyone is, but there is that sort of nurturing how do we make, personally for me as well, and lots of the women I know, is how do we make the world a better place? How do we really take charge of our communities and direct things in the way that we want them to go, and in a more holistic, nurturing, connected, communicating kind of way, essentially.
So you talked about your obviously play with children you went to. Well, what do you think has been the biggest challenge or biggest setback that you've had to overcome through your career?
In my career, well, it was something personal. So essentially, in the space of a year and a half, both my brothers died in separate circumstances, and then my dad popped his clogs as well. So I kind of lost. It was a very strange time, and because I move on quite. I'm very in the present moment. I don't recall a lot of the details of it. But I do know that at the time I carried on working. I was like, you know, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll carry on working in the playground. And it just got to a point where half my team decided to leave. And so it had a brilliant team. And I was kind of like, we had to work with our doors locked sometimes. So it was under quite a lot of pressure. And I wasn't getting any support, line management support. So I lost it one day in the playground with a young woman who was kind of goading me. And I stood there and I actually told her where to go in no uncertain terms. And I thought, this is time to go. There's obviously something I haven't, you know, I can't deal with this pressure anymore. I haven't really dealt with the death of my brothers and my dad. So I went abroad to deal with it. And, you know, people said I was really selfish for leaving my mum behind, but my mum never, ever questioned it. My mum is utterly amazing. I always mention her. So,
yeah. And I think sometimes mums know what you need.
Yeah.
And she obviously knew that you needed that at that time.
Yeah.
And that was best for you. And you knew what was right for you. But yeah, I think challenges come in very different forms to all of us over our careers. And it's how we react to them and deal with them. And you were probably very grown up at that point, realizing I've got to step away from this or I'm probably going to explode.
Probably going to end up in court.
Now, I'm the complete opposite you. I made the decision earlier on I couldn't work with other people's children. I could just about bear my own, but I didn't like other people's, definitely not. And I admire anyone that can work with children. I used a lot of play for my children, both growing up with nurseries, childminders, school activities, summer camps, winter camps, whatever I could, so I could keep working and studying and do what I was doing. But that was good for them. I think actually being in that environment was good for their development and good for their skill set and learning. And they learned so many different things, including a lot of sports. But we lose that. We lose that ability to play. And I don't know where we lose it, but it's almost as if it gets sucked out of us in our teens.
Yes, and that's when we become more self-conscious. You know, we have this whole soup of hormones, and with following rules, with, you know, culture. I believe we're encultured. So we learn the rules unconsciously and we follow that this is the way it needs to be. If you're going to be an accepted human being, if you're going to be looked on as you're in with the crowd, or you're, you know, it's incredibly difficult and isolating to be able to step aside and say, I'm not going to buy into all of that. I did kind of buy into it and not buy into it when I was, and I do remember a lot when I'm working with young people or thinking about young people. I remember back to my own childhood. I haven't disconnected from that. So yeah, we do. And I also think that it is, we're also told you're too old for that sort of stuff now. You need to grow up, don't you? Need to be more sensible now. You know, you need to be thinking about what you're going to be doing in the future. And I say that section between when they're probably maybe about 10 years old, and then when you get into a work environment and maybe feel more comfortable in work, you've had that. And businesses then want you to be really creative. And I'm like, what's that period? As we've kind of squashed all of it for a lot of people, not for everybody.
Yeah. And what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? For fun, I climb, well, when I can find one, I climb trees. There aren't that many trees that are that easy, because they are too chunky to get up on the first part. You've got to have just the right size branches and just the right height to be able to get onto them. But I will play, you know, for me, it's fun is climbing. I know it's a bit out there for a lot of people. I will actually, you know, I volunteer. I mean, I've just been volunteering this summer a couple of times with young people, because though I might not get involved in the play, I'm enjoying that, being in that environment. I do really just muck around. I'm like roll around and get dirty, and you know, I'm still really happy to roll around on the floor.
You know, I go and see my mum in the hospital at the moment, where she's been in a care home. She's got dementia, and outside the hospital window is a big tree and a big hill. It's on like a mound. And every time I go and see her, she tells me how she's snuck out and been rolling down this mound and climbing the tree. And she obviously believes it. And I think she's gone back to when she was a teenager, and she was telling me how she used to go home and her mum used to tell her off because she'd be covered from head to toe. And I'm talking probably about 15, 16 years old. And she'd be covered in mud and leaves and that, where she'd been playing and rolling down these things because she thought it was fun. So yeah, but it's interesting. She's 93 and still believes she's climbing trees.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm just glad she isn't, although she did escape a care home and she did go crawling on her hands and knees through brambles, but we don't think she climbed any trees. But what do you do? You know, I say to everybody, you know, there's got to be something when you're having a down day, when you feel like a lift or a boost. What lifts you? What do you do to get into that more inspired, more motivated state of mind?
Well, because I'm trained in NLP, I can just change my mindset by thinking something. I can reframe anything. So I don't have to go and do anything. If I was to go and do something, I love dancing. So I might put on, I don't do that very often anymore, but I used to put on dance music, because it would take me away from my work, and half an hour later I'd still be dancing around my office space. I absolutely, yeah. So dancing for me is an absolute winner. The other thing I do is I ride my bike. I ride my bike a lot. So I'll go out And if I'm going into town, I'll ride my bike. So again, that's a state change. I'm physically moving. So in the moment, those are the things that I will do. The rest of the time is, yeah, so I go climbing every week, and I exercise. That for me is the real, but I think it's so healthy. Whatever mindset you're in, is go exercise, because then you're in a different, you don't stop thinking about what's going on because you're physically moving.
And it's the endorphins as well, because you're creating those happy endorphins in your body through exercise.
Yes, you're creating. And, this is where, again, back to children and play. Children are wired to play. That's why they don't want to sit still, sit nicely in the class, because their body is telling them to do it. Because when it does that, when they're moving, they're producing more than just the endorphins. They're producing what they call they're producing barbiturates. So it is addictive. Their body is literally telling them, this is a drug because to get you to move, because they've got to develop their physiology. So when they don't do, that's why we've got issues with reflexes and other things like that right now.
And kids today are sat at computers playing computer games and things like that. So they're not actually going outside and playing.
Prior to that, it's a lot of the things is that adults, the adults don't realize how valuable that free play. It's about free play. It's not about even organized activities or games. About children just doing what they want for their own volition, for their own ends, and not having a purpose or an outcome. And it's about that spinning, jumping, running, it's all directions, because actually, and I'll give you a little bit of science here, is what that does is that develops their otolith organs, their sense of balance and proprioception it develops their ears, essentially. It also develops their hindbrain, their cerebellum, which is the focus, which is the foundation of language there as well. So not doing that, not being able to spin, run, jump, fall, whatever, is actually slowing them down for learning in school.
Interesting you're saying that, because I had my grandchildren last week and we just went into the garden and they were playing in, I've got like one of those little houses where they can go and cook, and they were cooking me things, imaginary, all sorts. And then they were off on their bikes in the garden and I could hear them talking, and they'd invented this whole scenario with games and a whole background to it. And you could hear it building as the time went on into this whole adventure. And I just sit and watch them, because I just love watching their minds expand like that. And as I say, we don't tend to ever do that when we're sitting watching, just playing a computer game.
No, and often we can do it with a reverie in our minds as children, and often though when you're with somebody else, you're bouncing those ideas off, as you were saying, they were doing there. And what happens is there's an evolution of ideas and there's an experimentation. And that's why I do personally believe we could learn in business a lot from children's, they are the experts at play. It's their business, as I call it.
I love it. I love it. What's on the horizon, Fenella?
So on the horizon is, well, I'm going to start a podcast as well. And it's going to be around playful conversations, essentially, or something around that, is having those conversations which maybe are a little bit more, people don't feel they can, subjects they can't talk about. I kind of like being quite edgy as well. And that's why I like, again, play, pushing the boundaries, because that's how new ideas come out. And as well, the other aspect of, as well as continuing my NLP training, which is kind of getting people to realize the value of it in terms of their personal development, but also bringing play into business. So is bringing that playful thinking into organizations where you can lower the stakes, increase psychological safety, and then have people become more creative, because it's really good for their well-being anyway. And I think we do suck out the creativity, the free creativity. It's kind of often quite prescribed. I remember I'm very quickly going to say, when I was at school, I remember children or teachers saying, talking about people's drawings, and they're putting children off from drawing. And it's like, because it wasn't done in a certain way according to the tree. I mean, even when I used to be at play settings, and they go, oh no, that tree, it's not blue, its trees are green. And I'd just be thinking, well, that's that. The child decided the tree is blue, so it's blue.
So would you class yourself as a rule breaker or a rule bender?
Rule breaker?
I thought you were going to say that. I'd say I'm a rule bender. I think I sort of bend the rules as far as I can go, but yeah, you're a rule breaker.
yeah, fundamentally, I've come to the point where, you know, this is another lovely thing about aging as well, is you can be mischievous and naughty, and people will, it's just because you've got that experience and confidence and sense of self-assurance, or I mean, lots of us have, some haven't. And I love that. You know, I think there's great, all of those years of experiences and mistakes that you've made already. And yeah, I break a few rules.
And have some fun.
Have some fun. Who says you can't climb trees at the age of 58?
Absolutely. Knowing me, though, and the way I break bones, I'll probably avoid that activity and find something else.
That's the thing, Sandra. I've been incredibly lucky. I just slice myself and bruise myself and things like that.
Well, it's been great to talk to you, and I always ask my guests to leave our audience with a piece of advice or top tip. So what would yours be?
Well, actually, now I'm thinking about it, is actually life is too short to focus on like sweating the small stuff. I would say is take a chance and go for it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So today I've been chatting to Fenella Hemus, and it's been great having you here. We'll share all your links in the show notes so people can get in touch with you and follow you on your various channels. Lovely to see you today.
Thank you so much, Sandra.